family separation, record high eviction rates, and culture and representation loss. These are all effects of the current gentrification crisis in Los Angeles. Who's the most impacted by this issue? Low-income Latinos. What exactly is gentrification? Gentrification is the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and abstracting new business, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. This action causes rent to increase and whitewashes areas as minorities are forced to move out. Latino-owned businesses are replaced by more urban places typically owned by white individuals, losing Latino culture and representation in gentrified neighborhoods. Los Angeles is currently one of the 7 areas with the highest rates of gentrification globally, with low-income Latinos being the most impacted by this issue. Gentrification stems from national, social, and economic trends throughout the years. Approximately 3/4 of low-income immigrants are more likely to pay unfair, high rents and live in overcrowded areas. When going over the statistics of areas of gentrification in Los Angeles, the list shows that lower and middle-income people of color and immigrants are suffering the worst in LA's most gentrified areas. In a Harvard study, researchers found that gentrified neighborhoods were typically composed of mainly Latino households. It is also stated that, in addition to their statistical proof, there is anecdotal evidence that Latino neighborhoods are viewed as more desirable to gentrifiers. Desirability by gentrifiers and the majority of Latino immigrants willing to pay higher rents to live in Los Angeles may be factors on why Latino neighborhoods have the highest levels of gentrification in the area. However, as Latinos are unable to keep up with the skyrocketing rents, they are forced to move out. Gentrification in LA Latino-dominant neighborhoods kills culture and representation, especially in schools and other public areas. Various LA areas that were once filled with cultural aspects and representation for Latinos are currently gentrified or undergoing the process of gentrification. Many people who had once lived in an area or had gone to certain schools and other public works are pushed out as white individuals move in. Located in downtown LA, 17-year-old high school senior Noel Escobar experiences gentrification firsthand.
To a school called Lusinger High School. It is in the city of Lawndale, California, on Rosecrans and Prairie, I believe. I don't know my school's address, but throughout the years, it has been undergoing a lot of gentrification. Not just the school, but the area in general. You know, apartments have like skyrocketed in prices, lots of new buildings mean new people. You know, slowly we are feeling like more and more pushed out of our community than we already have. A lot of us do and don't live there, so it's very much a mixed school, but the majority is, you know, minority. Minority is the majority. And lately, we've been seeing a lot of new faces. And these new faces happen to be predominantly, you know, white faces. A lot of the teachers are finding it interesting. You know, our school has been said, you know, within the next maybe 5 to 10 years, we're expected the majority to be white. You know, over 80%, if not 90% of the school to be white. Just because a bunch of new buildings are being built, our school is being remodeled. It's been undergoing a lot of remodelation since about pre-pandemic 2019, about to be pandemic 2019, basically.
In addition to losing Latino representation, gentrification also causes culturally important areas to be taken down and replaced for remodeling. One historical landmark located in Escobar School was recently on risk of being taken down.
Our school, Lusinger High School, our school, we have a building that is seen as a historical landmark, I believe. It's been there for, I think, about 70 years, 80 years, somewhere around there. It is our A building. It is the main building. You know, when you search us up on Google Maps, you know, maps on iPhone or in general, I think it should be the building that pops up. When you're going down, I believe it's, I don't know my streets, either Prairie or Rosecrans, whichever. That's the building you pass by. And they really were reluctant when it came to, you know, remodeling that building. You know, it became a whole feud with the district and historians, because historians were like, well, you can't tear this down. You know, it's a landmark. So eventually they came to some form of middle ground where I believe, if you walk in there, you'll see it. Only the interior is basically just gutted out and all new. Outside, same old, same old.
Low-income Latino students living in neighborhoods undergoing gentrification not only go through culture and representation laws, but are also pushed out of their homes as they are unable to keep up with the skyrocketing rents caused by higher-income white individuals moving into the area.
My family can't really afford rent like that anymore. We're being pushed out of where we live just because we have a bunch of remodelation in the area. We have a bunch of new faces, new buildings. It means rent goes up, food goes up, everything goes up. And yeah, you can say a lot of it is due to the way the world is going right now. We're still in a global pandemic. Ukraine and Russia, that's happening. So yeah, there's some of it has to do with that, but a lot of it has to do with the effect of the new people. A lot of new people coming in. So I guess there's a lot of new value to our old broken down houses.
Escobar is just one of the millions of people affected by gentrification in low-income Los Angeles areas. Downtown, the Arts District, Echo Park, Boyle Heights, and parts of Inglewood are all areas that were once overwhelmingly populated by low-income Latinos and are currently being affected by gentrification. Escobar's teacher, Mr. Van Mai, has similar experiences of viewing gentrification occurring in both his neighborhood and school district.
I'm the chemistry teacher at Lusinger High School. And how has gentrification affected me? I would say property tax. It's and that's how they price out the people that can't afford areas that are being remodeled, you want to think of it.
Gentrification not only increases rent prices, but also creates increased property taxes, causing negative effects for low-income Latinos, forcing them to move out.
Prices keep going up, and at one point, if there's more buyers and the houses in the community is good, it's definitely going to price out the lower income families. Now, of course, that's a problem because who wants to move? If you love your community, you love the place you live in, you don't want to move. And that's where we see the little split between I would say probably the low income and the people that have enough money to stay in that area. And do I have a problem with that? It's always about upgrading. Money's always going to increase because inflation. And it's sad to say that when a community gets better, there's always going to be two sides. Let's say a community that wasn't so nice, people could afford to live there. Their complaint is, well, it's dangerous. There's a lot of gangs, people come around, litter, bad neighborhood. And then new folks come in and improve it. Then you have the same people complaining now about, well, now we can't live here anymore. I mean, what is it? Is it too dangerous or is it too nice? It's always going to be oppositions on both sides. And if I had to pick, I want a balance of both. But that's not life. It's just so hard. There's always going to be some people making choices that is going to affect you, even when you don't want it. Just like the people who are going to get priced out of these neighborhoods because it's too expensive now. Where do they go?
Although new buildings and renovations can be viewed as beneficial for making an area be viewed as more modernized, it takes away culture and representation and leaves a negative impact on the lives of low-income Latinos.
This building didn't exist before 2010, so I would tell you that. Does it help? Yeah, but it doesn't help the people who can't afford it.
Gentrification is not just a current issue. This problem has been going on throughout history and continues to worsen as time goes on. Just between 1990 and 2015, there has been a 16% increase of gentrification in LA. One of the major events involving gentrification in Los Angeles from the past is Chavez Ravine. Throughout the early 1950s till 1962, over 1,800 families, mainly consisting of Mexican households in Chavez Ravine, were forced out of their homes to build a Dodger Stadium. This caused families to separate and lose cultural traditions, such as the Hispanic tradition of having the umbilical cord buried where someone was born, and then later being buried in the same area once they die. Luz Santalan, a now 87-year-old man who was a teenager when his family was forced out of their home in Chavez Ravine, states, "There's an old Mexican custom that where you're born, the umbilical cord is buried. Mine's buried under third base, and I hate home runs because every time they step on third base, my stomach hurts." Santalan's son, Eddie, states, "There's people who won't even step into the Dodger Stadium. They're still bitter. My family who was a priest, he wouldn't have gone to any Dodger games." Many families who were impacted by the gentrification of Chavez Ravine referred to themselves as los desterrados, meaning the uprooted. These instances are now a rallying symbol of Latino LA history and activism, as many families refuse to have their homes bulldozed and destroyed for the creation of Dodger Stadium, as the last family was dragged away kicking and screaming and weeping. So why this area? Residents living in Chavez Ravine were viewed as poor and relied on farming as a source of income. Therefore, its reputation caused it to be seen as an urban decay. Chavez Ravine was viewed as the ideal place for the Dodger Stadium as it had the potential space for construction. Families were promised new housing units in return for leaving Chavez Ravine, yet the promises were abandoned. These instances of gentrification still relate to today, as similar experiences are still occurring and families who went through these instances are still currently impacted. Old families from Chavez Ravine still feel grief and anger after having their homes taken from them. The reasoning behind why this area was chosen to gentrify is still used today, and lower-income Latinos are continuously forced to leave their homes and communities through each generation. Even though this is a recurring issue, we can help change for the future. By working together and fighting against gentrification through protests and changes, the problem may be able to be resolved. The dark history between past instances of gentrification should be expressed and taken responsibility for, rather than simply ignored and forgotten. Currently, movements such as gentrification help to keep Latino culture and representation alive in gentrified areas, or areas currently undergoing gentrification, by protesting culturally important areas at risk of being taken down. Gentrification also helps by having upscale Latinos continue to live in gentrified neighborhoods, or move into gentrified neighborhoods to revitalize the area, rather than allowing white newcomers to gentrify it themselves. In an article written by Adriana Lopez, she states, "If gentrification is happening, it might as well be from the people who care about the existing culture. It would be best if the gente decided to invest in improvements because they are more likely to preserve its integrity." Although gentrification may be viewed as unavoidable, the process of gentrification allows culture to be preserved rather than taken away by new white neighbors and businesses. By protesting Latino displacement and keeping culturally important areas untouched, we may be able to limit the effects of gentrification and keep Latino culture and representation alive.